This may be the best feature to come to SharePoint since the creation of modern pages. I personally think it's going to be the best feature of 2025. I'm going to break down this new feature, flexible sections. I'll cover what it is, how it works, the impact on your custom web parts or third-party web parts, some of the gotchas you need to be aware of, and where I think this feature is headed. And if I'm right, this is going to change everything about how SharePoint intranets are designed. You don't want to miss a second of this, so let's just get right into it. So what are flexible sections? Well, these are new sections that have been added to SharePoint that will let you create a canvas style section. You can drag and drop web parts onto it and position them right where you need them. It is a total game changer. It is brand new to SharePoint, but you may have a familiar experience if you've ever used something like Canva, because it's going to be a really, really close comparison. It's got a lot of the same features as you'll see as we start getting into this and start playing around with all this stuff. Now, what is it for? It's designed to be a different section type. So you've got the typical section types like 1 column, 2 column, 3 column, full width, things like that. This will be a new section type. So instead of all those other ones, you may just use the new flexible sections. In fact, someone's already told me that they may only ever use this section from now on when they're doing intranet pages because of how powerful this thing is. Let's jump into the intranet and see how this thing works. So I'm on an intranet page right now. I'm just going to go straight into edit mode, and you'll see the familiar things you're used to. But if we go to new section, you'll see this option here. It's flexible. That's what it's called because that's the flexible section. If we add this, it just looks like a blank section. There's no columns defined, and that's the point. Here's what happens if we drag and drop a web part onto it. We can pick one of these images. Let's pick this one. So now we've got a web part on here. If we click on the handle, we can drag it around and notice the grid pattern here. This is how you can use this to align images or any other web part where you want them. Now we could take another web part. Let's take a text web part and add it. Maybe we add it right on top of the image web part. Now we can add in some text. And then we click off of it. Now we've got them stacked on top of each other. You can overlap these things as well. Yeah, it is really, really good. But you've still got the same properties that you would have normally. So maybe we change this to a heading 3 or a heading 2. We can make this bold. We can change the alignment so it is maybe right aligned. How about centered? There. But this is really just scratching the surface here. Let's drag this over here. Now we can grab these handles and resize the images, and notice that the section automatically expands. It grows taller to accommodate this taller web part. Is your mind starting to kind of process what we've actually got here? We've got an authoring canvas, an actual canvas that we can design with, put things exactly where we want them to be, stack things on top of each other, resize text. We've got a whole playground right here in these sections. This changes a lot, right? It changes a ton about how you're creating pages. Now you've got very, very fine control of how you want this thing to appear. Now other web parts like quick links, if we add this, there's going to be certain sizes we can resize this to. Notice the dashed line around this box. If I let go, it's going to expand out to that size. So some of these web parts only have a certain number of sizes. I believe the number is 4 that they can be resized to. That's going to change over time as a lot of these web parts get updated. So some of these will allow for full resizing, whatever size you want, in other words. Others, there's going to be predefined sizes for those. Now, if I get rid of this, now if I drag this around, one of the things you'll notice is that there'll be alignment helpers to help you align things to, in this case, the right edge of that text block. Or if we resize this a little bit, then we can snap it to the middle of the section, notice the red dashed line. So there'll be alignments for vertical and horizontal alignment for both the section as well as neighboring web parts so that you can get things positioned just the way you want them, and it's all nice and organized on the page. But when you want to overlap web parts, so let's put this right here in the middle. We'll shrink this down and let's align this, just like this, right in the middle of the image web part. Notice the vertical dashed line on top of the image. So if we align this, if we wanted to move this to the back, sends to back, if you've done Canva or Photoshop or some of these other design tools where it's designed to keep everything separate so that you can organize things exactly the way you want them, you'll have options here to bring to the front, sends to the back. So now it's behind the image, and to get that back, we can click on this and select bring to front again. Actually, we'll have to click on the image and send that to the back, won't we? There, now we've got our text back. So you've got options here to change the order around from front to back. The Z order is it's called in some cases, but you could also select multiple things. Let's use the control key and make sure both of them are clicked. Now you'll have the option to group these together. So if we were to group them, now we can move the entire thing around and everything stays all together. So once you've built out different elements of your section with images, text, other web parts, you can just group those together and then move them as a group so you don't have to move each thing individually. But if I still wanted to rearrange maybe the text and move it up, all I have to do is, if you click once, you'll select the entire group. If you click again, you'll select the individual web part in the group. So in this case, the text box. So now I can move this up to the top if I wanted to. So you've got a lot of control with how things are grouped, how you can adjust things within a particular grouping, and these groups will also persist across editing sessions. All this stuff is saved into the web part properties behind the scenes. So if you save this page and go back into it tomorrow or next year, that group is still going to exist. So it keeps everything really well organized, doesn't it? Now, one of the things you're probably thinking is, what about responsive design? What about how this is going to look on smaller devices, on tablets, on phones? How is this going to work? Because you're not using the standard sections. Let me show you. So let me add in a couple of other web parts. Let me add a banner right here, and I will resize this down. And maybe we put a link over here as well. So we can start adding in some things. And then let me add, how about we add the new editorial card down here as well? We could shrink this down. Actually, let's do the editorial card instead of the hero card. So we'll add in editorial, we'll expand this out. So we can kind of build out actually a hero web part with exactly all the things we want right where we want to position them. So we could add this, maybe we add a button right here, and we could expand this out. Let's line it up with the image group we've got. There we go. And let's change the properties here. I'll just make this go to just this home page, just so I could have a link. So we've got some things on here. Now here's how the mobile or the responsiveness happens. You'll see on the section properties where I'm at now, you have the option to make this selection collapsible like a lot of other sections have, but then here's the special sauce, the reorder on mobile. Now, I think we're going to get some much better documentation on how this works, but these are two different algorithms that will determine the order of the web parts that they'll appear on small devices. So when all this is down on a tiny phone, all this is going to get basically stacked one on top of each other. And this control right here, this setting, will determine how the order is determined, whether it's web parts from top to bottom or it's web parts from left to right. There's a lot of nuances I haven't quite figured out yet. I think we're going to get some really good documentation, possibly a little info option here, one like a little eye, like what we have with background ideas. I think we're going to get something here for the reorder on mobile option so that we understand exactly how this works, how that algorithm is going to determine the layout. But if we were to just save this, and then I pop into developer tools so that we can see how this looks on mobile, you'll see that everything just kind of flows in this order. Now, changing that option may give you different results, or it may not, depending on how you have your web parts laid out. I've gotten some different results, so I'm not sure exactly how it's determining what goes before another web part, what goes first, what goes second, as it goes down a mobile display or a smaller display. So I'll just save all those thoughts until we get some concrete documentation on that. But just be aware, you do want to check this to make sure you understand how this is going to look on a smaller device, which, by the way, we're going to be getting a really good feature soon to show that right inside the editing interface. So stay tuned and subscribe to this channel to make sure you know when that feature launches and how to use it. Now, there's a ton of other features as well. Just to call out something, because I know a lot of you out there are using PnP Modern Search web parts, those free web parts. Those will work just fine. I can drag and drop a search box in here. I can drag and drop the search results web part as well. And this, notice it will automatically resize. Maybe I stick this down here. Maybe I've just got a really, really tall section where I'm going to be putting a lot of content. All that will work fine. The third-party web part support is really, really good. However, SharePoint Framework 1.21 is going to provide a lot of extra support for these new flexible sections so that you can dictate, you can kind of provide that information to SharePoint, how your web part should respond inside a flexible section, or if it's even supported in a flexible section, because you may have business needs where you need this in a more structured type of section. So we're going to get a lot more information when SharePoint Framework 1.21 releases. So stay tuned for that when it comes out. Let me delete these and show you another thing that I was real confused about at first. So suppose, let me get rid of this section right here. And one thing that when I was first playing around with this, I was confused about is, well, if I've added stuff to this flexible section, and then I later wanted to delete it, well, now I've got all this white space down here. That's actually what this handle right down here is for. It lets you resize it. So you can, if you want to add extra white space, you can. You can just bring this down to add white space. Otherwise, if you want to reduce this down, then you can shrink it down to just the size that you need. So if you see this, that's what that's for. And if you're looking for it and you don't see it, chances are you may have a scroll bar at the bottom of the screen, and that handle is actually going to be hidden behind the toolbox or the properties panel. Whatever this panel is happens to be showing, it may be hiding behind that. So don't forget to check for that scroll bar, scroll to the right side, and then you'll probably see this handle there. Another really, really neat thing is if you want to start with something other than a blank slate, a blank flexible section, you want some inspiration, you want to start with something that looks cool. Well, if I just delete this whole thing, then what I can do is I can go to the toolbox where all the web parts are. And then if you scroll down, you'll see section templates. And some of these are going to support, or they'll be flexible sections. Look at this annual summit recap. I can drag this onto my page, and I get a flexible section with all these different web parts already laid out on the page. I can start to change my images, change the text, whatever you need to do to make this cater to your business needs, your intranet needs. You can do that, but it gives you a great starting point, including a custom background here or custom background color. You've got different sections in here to get your messaging across on the page. Let me try that again, because you do have to drop it right on the section divider. Oh, it's right here. Okay. So you'll have options here, but I like how there's this, wavy design. Oh, looks like I added a few of them. There we go. So we've got this wavy design, and then on each side, we can start to have content. It gives a very different look to SharePoint, where we're expecting to see much more boxy, constrained sections on a page, right? That's how we're used to seeing SharePoint. That's how it's always looked. Even before we had modern pages, that's kind of how it looked and what we came to expect. This really changes everything about how those pages are going to be designed. Now you have a lot more creativity. Now, where is this going? What could this lead to? What do I think this is going to lead to? Here's the best part. But before we get to that really big one, we are going to be seeing more sizing options come for the web parts. So like the quick links, it only has a few different size options. We'll see additional sizing come to that as Microsoft starts to go back and update those to support the powerful, flexible sections that we have. Microsoft is also looking at other customization options for the reflow option, that how it reorganizes things for small devices and for email. They're going to be looking at other options to give us better presentation on those types of displays. But here's the big one. If you're in the Power Apps world, you might be aware of this third-party platform, and you might have even used it. It's a very, very common design platform, and it's called Figma. I've covered this on my channel before because it's a design tool. It's even free. It's got a free tier. It's a design tool so that you could lay out things on the page. Now, something that's already been available for Power Apps, if you're using Power Apps, is you can take a Figma design. You can lay out your app in this tool. No functionality, really, but you're laying out all the components on the page. Then you can import that into Power Apps. I think that this is the next step for this because we have an actual canvas. That's exactly how Figma works. It's a canvas. You lay things out, you move things to the back, you bring them to the front, you get things just where you want them. And then I believe there's going to be a method to import that Figma design, that SharePoint page that you've laid out using the Microsoft Figma Web UI Toolkit. They already have these controls available so that you can build out a SharePoint page. Again, if you haven't seen that, go back and look for my Figma video. And I'm really, really sure that at some point we're going to be able to design a page in Figma or have a marketing department design it, have designers who don't know SharePoint design the intranet. And then you can take that design and convert it into a SharePoint page or import it into a new page. That's where I believe we're headed. And I think that the flexible sections were the last thing that Microsoft really needed. They needed that architecture in place so that we can have that level of integration with an actual pro design tool. So that's where I think we're headed with this. And it makes me really excited because this is a big, big step for SharePoint. Modern pages really changed the game with how intranets were going to look. If you still have old classic SharePoint sites, take a look. They were really, really bad looking. Modern pages changed that. This is the next evolution, I believe, for SharePoint modern pages, is having completely customizable, flexible sections, and then taking Figma designs that you send out to your design team who knows how to make content look good, jump off the page. They're going to be able to design that thing using drag and drop interfaces, which is how Figma works. And then they'll give that to you and you can just convert it straight into a SharePoint page. Configure any settings you need on there, but the actual layout's already done for you. That is going to be incredible. I'm waiting to see Microsoft confirm that through some sort of an announcement. I think possibly this year it could come. But for now, we've got a very powerful section to play with. And we've got a lot of possibilities for overhauling our SharePoint intranet, which is probably, I think we all agree, it's probably overdue. Your SharePoint probably hasn't been redesigned that often, hasn't been redesigned lately. I think that's overdue, and these are going to give us an amazing opportunity to reimagine how our intranet looks. Now, if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel, and I've got an entire playlist all about SharePoint that will go through a lot of these new features, as well as features you haven't found yet that have come out. So to get started, just click or tap the screen, and I'll see you over there.